Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Out of Spec Guide. I'm Max. I'm joined today by my colleague Ryan. Hello.
Great to see you.
Great to see you, Ryan. So, Ryan, you are a very happy owner and driver right now of a Tesla Model 3, but before that, you had the Chevy Bolt, right?
Yeah, it was a great car. I had it for 2 years, put 30,000 miles on it. It was a great car, but the charging was a little bit slow. Other than that, almost no complaints.
No, it's like was the affordable EV to get, especially in the last year where it got the tax credit. It's still technically for sale, but it's really hard to find Bolts. And so, Ryan, today I wanted to talk about for people who want something like a Bolt, like a hatchback or kind of like very small crossover type vehicle that's affordable, like not much over 30 grand. What are the options in the market? And as it turns out, Ryan, in the US, there's not that many.
It's a pretty limited selection.
Yeah, but we're going to walk you through it. What are some of the best options for replacing the Bolt? Because it's not hopeless. So, Bolt at the moment, okay, if you really want one, you can find one new. The production is kind of finishing up at the moment, and a lot of dealers are hiking them up, in some cases over MSRP. But you can see here in Auto Trader, I'm sorting like for Bolts anywhere. And like in Colorado, Ryan, the closest dealer selling a new one's 500 miles away from us. So, not a ton of leverage if you're in the market for a new Bolt, which is unfortunate because like the Bolt is such a great deal now because it gets the full federal tax incentive and all of that. I think the Bolt still makes a ton of sense as a used EV though, Ryan, if people want a cheap one, right?
Certainly. And there's two generations. Both of them are quite similar, and you can get them, as you can see, under 20 grand.
Yeah, what's the
It's a great
delineation for
car.
the generations, Ryan?
In 2022, I believe they changed the body style, but the battery is the same, charging the same, range is very similar. So it's
Yeah,
just a slight upgrade in how it looks, and then software is updated as well.
yep, I made a buyer's guide video that people can check out on Bolt specifically, but basically Bolts are drying up at the moment. Used can make a lot of sense. My girlfriend drives a used Bolt and loves it. I'm sure the owner of your Bolt is also appreciating that wherever they may be right now. But Ryan, the most obvious alternative has been the other kind of affordable hatchback on the EV market, a pioneer. It existed even before the Bolt. It's the Nissan LEAF. It's also had two generations.
Yeah, well, it does exist for sure, but I'm a bit hesitant to recommend that as a good vehicle to buy. And a main reason for that is its battery. It doesn't have active cooling, it uses passive cooling, which means when it gets hot or when you fast charge it, the battery gets really hot, and that can lead to some premature degradation.
Yeah, basic degradation, meaning that your battery is going to accelerate its wear and you're going to lose potential range on the Leaf. It's been an issue, strangely, on all Leafs. The second generation didn't resolve this. Like you were saying, like Bolt, it got sort of like a facelift. I think it was 2018 and newer Leafs, which are the second generation. I think they look a lot nicer. They got like nicer interiors, and yet they didn't fix that fundamental issue with cooling the powertrain. So that's just unfortunate, especially for folks who live in a climate with, cold or hot weather.
Right. It's a good car, it's got good range, but I think for that price range, there's a lot of other options that I think might be better.
Yeah, it's got good range if you get the Plus, which is more
Right.
expensive, probably more expensive than you want to spend on this. Now, I am seeing, Ryan, them under MSRP by a few $1,000s. It's also worth mentioning that at least through the end of the year, you can now get half of the federal tax credit on a Leaf. So that's why I thought it's even worth mentioning here. Like if you find a bargain basement deal on a Leaf and you really want a new car for whatever reason, and you can get the take advantage of the tax credit, and you can like be out, you can realize a Leaf for 20-ish thousand dollars or less, maybe it makes sense, but do watch out for the battery degradation. And Ryan, did we mention the charging situation too? Like you said, the Bolt's not great. The Leaf is not ideal either.
Right. If anything, it's even worse than the Bolt, but neither of them are good at charging. Neither of them are good for road trips. Additionally, the Leaf uses a CHAdeMO plug, which is becoming more and more rare, and it can be a problem. It can be challenging to try to road trip with that.
Yeah, I don't think it will age well with infrastructure. Many already, there's not that many CHAdeMO plugs left. And as we see an adoption to Tesla's charging port, that might replace the few CHAdeMOs that are left. So there's no adapter on the market currently, unfortunately. So I think Leaf drivers hoping to road trip are could be in dire straits very soon. CHAdeMO is a dying standard. Like you said, it's an issue that it's stuck with that. So in that case, even worse than the Bolt. Even if you find a CHAdeMO station, you're not going to get amazing charging performance. The same issues with the battery we mentioned earlier affect the fact that if you charge it multiple times in a day while also driving it hard, you may just run into even slower charging. So long story short, probably avoid the Leaf. But Ryan, believe it or not, the Model 3, which is like, used to be in a different price category than a Bolt altogether, if people are willing to buy a used one, there's inventory Model 3s that are in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $28,000.
That's a very affordable and approachable price. I think that's really great. And I think it's something people should very seriously consider. One thing to keep in mind is which incentives are still available because they differ between new and used vehicles. So that can have a pretty big impact on your purchase price. But getting a Model 3 for 25-ish thousand dollars is a really good bargain.
Yeah, I made a video all about those incentives. And Ryan, the long story short, for the federal incentives at least, is there's a $25,000 benchmark. So if folks can find a sub $25,000 Model 3, then it should be eligible. But I'm not seeing any of those in Tesla's Slide at the moment. Even the ones that I'm seeing that are the super low price are kind of far away. So inventory is always shifting, but it's nice to see these actually getting pretty affordable. Now, new Model 3, Ryan, even inventory one, I think folks are still going to be paying closer to $40,000 probably, right?
That's right. It does qualify for the federal incentive, but it is quite a bit more expensive than the Bolt.
Yeah. Maybe like if you were getting the nicest tricked out Bolt EUV with Super Cruise, okay, it's not much more of a stretch to go for the Model 3. But if you were hoping under 30 grand, you got to go use with Model 3. But it's cool that they are finally getting there. Ryan, the Hyundai Kona electric is interesting. And this one I want to qualify. There is an existing version on the market that has a starting MSRP that's actually pretty good, 33 grand. There's a new one will probably be more expensive that's getting a facelift next year. This, Ryan, is like better at charging than the Bolt. It actually has okay, acceptable range, 250 EPA rated. What do you think of this as an option?
It's a great one. I'm a huge proponent of the Kona. I think it's a great value. The range is very usable, and it's got much better charging than the Bolt. A very low bar, admittedly, but significantly better and a lot more usable for a road trip. I do want to clarify that it is not a very fast charging vehicle. You'll still probably be doing 30, 40-ish minute charging sessions, but certainly better than a Bolt and comparable range.
No. And don't be fooled by its looks. It is a little bit more SUV styling, but it's not all-wheel drive. Similar to the Bolt EUV, it's still a front-wheel drive vehicle, but it is a really practical one. Like you said, charges better than the Bolt, can make a lot of sense, has a properly cooled battery pack. So that's all awesome to see. I'm seeing them, Ryan, at like the $35,000 MSRP realistically, within 250 miles of here. So I think they need to get a little bit cheaper. They're not eligible for any of the federal incentives, unfortunately.
That makes it tough. There are some state or local incentives that you may be able to access, but again, that'll vary on where you live. And again, there's no federal tax incentive for that one.
Yeah, there's an upcoming 2024 Kona Electric. Still won't have the tax incentive. And Ryan, if I had to guess, it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive. It will have some cool things like vehicle to load and some of the cool features we've seen on the newer Hyundai vehicles. Nicer interior, nicer styling, more technology that's standard inside. But like Ryan, I'm predicting probably like well above 35 grand, touching 40 grand base one for this one. I'm easily seeing that.
I imagine we'll see a price increase, and especially considering it's already quite a bit more expensive than a Bolt, that does make it a bit more tough.
Yeah. There's the Niro EV from Hyundai's sister brand Kia, but Niro new is $40,000. I wanted to throw that in there because I do love the Niro. I've driven a Niro at a press event, this new refreshed one. Love the technology in it. I think it actually has like a lot of usable space, but we're getting into just more expensive territory.
Yes, certainly. And once you start reaching 40 grand, there's a lot of cars that are, I think, a bit more compelling and a bit more capable, both with range or charging or potentially both.
Yeah. Now there's the Equinox EV, which initially had this $30,000 estimated starting MSRP, which we don't know if that's going to be stuck to. It was supposed to come out also, Ryan, fall of this year. It's, let's say, partner in the lineup, the Blazer EV, is actually for sale right now at some dealers in very limited quantity. So that's a more expensive, slightly larger version of this. So based off how that bodes, I don't think availability for these is happening anytime in the immediate future.
I definitely agree. If this vehicle comes out at $30,000, that'll be great. I think it's really compelling. It's got good charging, good range, all the stuff that you would want, but it doesn't exist yet. And GM has been relatively slow with delivering new EVs. So I don't know when this will actually come out.
Yeah, people are like you said, genuinely excited about the promise of this because if it fulfills all those promises with what it's giving you, like honestly, not bad styling and the space and the features, range, like that's all amazing. But it's a big if, and it's just yeah, it doesn't really practically exist at the moment, sadly.
Hopefully sometime soon.
Hopefully. Now, Ryan, ID4 I wanted to throw in here because we have talked about other cars broaching that, approaching the $40,000 mark, like the Niro EV. Well, I think the ID4 standard, the very cheapest one you can get, is actually something worth considering because it's a $39,000 starting MSRP, Ryan, and it gets the tax credit. So it has that federal incentive because they're built in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Right. One thing I do want to clarify is you do see 275 miles on this webpage. You will not get that with the standard range. It's closer to 200, I believe. But it's still a good car with pretty good charging and usable range.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Ryan. I hate it when manufacturers do that, cherry pick different specs from different things. It's, yeah, 210 miles EPA rated on that standard battery. It is a fairly decent charger, though. Like, no big issues there. I think it charges better still than the either the Kona electric or the Niro EV. So it's worth considering ID4. I will say it's hard to find the standard ones on dealer lots, though. Like, if you're willing to spend more, like 43 grand and get a Pro, okay, those are around, but there's not a lot of the standards.
It's more difficult to find them. They exist, but you're really going to have to search for it.
Yes. Then upcoming, Ryan, shortly, hopefully next year, the Volvo EX30 has been so exciting. It's captured the imagination of a lot of folks. It is a very small SUV, the base one that will be a single motor one with the only battery we get in the US. It's going to have decent range and it's going to be cheap, under $35,000, just under. That's really exciting.
If I'm being honest, this is pretty easily the vehicle that I'm most excited to see in the near future.
Yeah, and why is that, Ryan?
It's affordable, great range, good charging, and it seems like it's designed well, both exterior and interior. It seems like a great place to be, and the starting price of $35,000 is incredible, really competitive, and I think a great value if you can get it around that price.
Yeah. Now, Volvo dealers, I will say, Ryan, historically have been among the better dealers in terms of just being more honest and ethical and I think easier to work with. Still, given the demand of this vehicle, I'm predicting it's going to be hard to find those base models at true MSRP price. If, though, Ryan, you could get one at that base MSRP price, that's a new vehicle under $35,000 where we live in Colorado, that opens it up to another $2,500 state incentive on top of a $5,000 state tax incentive. This won't get any federal incentives, I should note, because it's made in China, but that's really cool that it can get a lot of local incentives, at least for us. Just shows you that this is approaching a very nice, affordable price point.
Certainly, and even without that federal tax incentive, I think it's a pretty competitive vehicle at the price.
Yeah, takes a lot to really be competitive without the tax incentive, but it's doing it. And I think this puts pressure on both the Niro EV and the Kona electric. So at the moment, you're watching this right now and you want to know the alternative. sounds like, Ryan, our advice is if you're willing to go used Model 3s can be great. Of course, they're not a hatchback or an SUV. They are a traditional like sedan with that trunk. If that's not an issue with you, it's a great vehicle with a great charging network. Otherwise, you can get Kona Electrics, the 2023 model, which may come down in price once this new one starts rolling out, but no incentives, and you're spending like $36,000 still. So it's a little bit more pricey.
Yeah, the thing that's really unfortunate is the Bolt was pretty unique, especially at its price point. There's not really anything that can replace it at the moment, which is a bit of a bummer, but there are vehicles that are kind of close and fairly close in price.
Yeah, so hopefully this is giving you something to chew on in the sense that alternatives are there and possible. What's on the market at the moment and what's upcoming, Ryan, there is something, but you're right. There's nothing at the moment quite like the Bolt. So if you can get a new Bolt and snap up a good deal, then of course do that right now. But other than that, these are your alternatives on the market. I thought it was worth exploring all of those, some of them clearly being more realistic than others. Thanks though for joining me for this one.
Of course, it was great talking with you.
Yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.